Today I'm presenting on behalf of myself, but also Fabrizio Galeazzi, who's a research fellow with StoryLab. So one of the projects that I'm talking about will include his work as well. So we are a research institute that operates in multimodal storytelling, and a lot of what we do operates under the heading of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. So we look at technologies, but we look at analog and digital, and look at how they can enhance our world, how we can communicate with each other, how we can use it to actually advance our communities and advance our storytelling skills. So we operate at the center of narrative, form and impact. So we look at different forms of storytelling across sound, film, digital in all its forms, VR, AR, analog in terms of photographs, and we also look at creative practice processes as well. We construct our own stories across these multimodal strands, but we also investigate existing multimodal stories as well. And then we look at the effect of these forms of narrative on individuals and society. So the way our processes operate our methodologies, basically, we work collaboratively with communities, with individuals, with organizations. We do a lot of co-creation in various environments. We look at interview techniques, how we conduct these interviews. We look at existing and emerging technologies, both at high level and also at accessible level, domestic level. We also look at audience experiences, and we evaluate how audiences are experiencing our stories, and obviously knowledge exchanges at the centre of the Research Institute as well. At the heart of everything that we do is the experiential and the emotional. If you could feel for 5 minutes what it would be like, tends to underpin most of our projects. So we operate in this landscape of freedom to play. We believe that this what-if approach to storytelling and exploring narratives actually frees you and allows you to explore under this banner of speculative design. We're not quite sure what the outcome will be. We have particular areas that we want to tick, but we find that there are all sorts of unknown elements that come out of our storytelling, and we're really actually quite excited by what happens when we do apply our narratives in different landscapes. So we look at sound design, drones, visual effects. More recently, we've been looking at LiDAR scanning, and we look at point of view as an immersive storytelling landscape. And we also explore spatial and binaural sound. And we explore platforms as well. So our stories are told across various different platforms. The single screen, the 2D screen, the most accessible, and that includes cinema as well as online. Multi-screen in exhibition spaces, surround screen, the interactive, VR in its various different formats, online 3D visualization, which is a speciality of Fabrizio, and then we look at the interactive ebook, which is something that we did more recently. We spend a lot of time gathering how evidence is how audiences will experience these stories and the impact upon them. And we use different evaluation techniques where we have direct conversations in screening, and as we're doing now, we're gathering in more traditional forms of evaluation. So that tells you a little bit about our design processes and our methods. I think you were sent links to some of our projects, and I'm not sure how many of you had a chance to have a look at our projects. But the first one we want to talk about is the Golden Window, where we co-created with carers inside the neonatal intensive care unit. So my background is with the BBC. I've made about 20, 30 different documentaries, a lot of them within the healthcare environment. But I always wanted to explore these environments without the burden of a broadcaster or scheduling. So we actually made this project with the staff, with the hospital staff, and with the carers inside the neonatal intensive care unit. And we focused on newborn babies that had experienced traumatic birth, who were being treated with a cooling technique which involves therapeutic suspension over 72 hours. So these babies have experienced something called HIE, and when they're placed in this suspended animation, it gives their bodies time to recover and almost reverse any kind of neurological damage that they may have experienced. Within these 72 hours, there's very little that the parents can do except to wait and just be there in that space. So what we did is that we explored that space over the 72 hours, and we tried to capture what the people inside this space call the bubble. Unless you were actually in it, you wouldn't understand it. So we took several approaches. The first was we interviewed the parents, the carers, in a little room just to the side of the unit itself. And then we set up the camera. So if you can see the diagram on the top right-hand side, you have our DOP, and in front of the camera you have a sheet of glass in a pane. The diagram below shows you how I and B, our parent is A, and we talk to each other through this glass, which allows us to have a conversation, which isn't interrupted by the camera at all. We are in a space which is completely cocooned, and the camera films the reflection of the parent. And we found from feedback that the parents felt it was actually quite cathartic, and they often felt that they were in the room like their child was, and it allowed them to talk really quite openly and honestly about their experiences. And then we used several techniques for actually capturing that space, where we used macro lenses, a point of view filming, and everything to actually heighten that perspective, that audio and visual perspective in that space. The next project, because I'm aware of time, is a project which is driven by Fabrizio Galeazzi in collaboration with Paola De Franco. So it's a collaboration between StoryLab and the University of Essex. And in this particular project, Fabrizio has been exploring LiDAR scanning, 3D LiDAR scanning, and he's gone back to his town in Italy. So this particular interactive documentary combines 3D visualization and multimodal storytelling to tell the story of Cernercia, which is a small town in northern Italy, which was hit by an earthquake almost 40 years ago. This is one of the most devastating earthquakes in Italian history, with at least 40 towns almost completely destroyed, and 2,500 people were killed, 8,000 were injured, and almost 250,000 people were made homeless. So Fabrizio and Paola have been filming out there. Their film reveals the tension between the social rebuilding of that space and the material reconstructions of the town of Cernercia. And with 3D laser scanning, they start from the virtual replica of the old town. And and use it as a container for 360 panoramas of selected areas of Senertia. They've combined that with video interviews with inhabitants of the new town, built after the earthquake, and these are embedded into hotspots into this 3D documentary. So this documentary can be experienced through VR or online, on a 2D online. So what they've used in terms of the multimodal media is 3D laser scanning, photogrammetry, poetry, and first-person narratives. And the project is designed to give communities affected by one of the biggest earthquakes in Italy a voice, an understanding of loss, and connect them to planners as they rebuild the town. After the earthquake, many people lived in prefabricated houses for more than 20 years before they were able to return to their towns. But the reconstructions of the town took different shapes. Firstly, they were rebuilt anew with very little trace of the old town visible. Some of them were rebuilt anew with landmarks or iconic monuments spared by the earthquake restored and integrated into the new town. Or some of these towns were rebuilt next to the ruins of the abandoned old town. But 40 years on, communities are still affected by this event, and ethnographic research in the area shows that how different reconstruction plans have impacted upon the social rebuilding processes these communities have faced since disaster struck them. So this particular project is designed to give communities a voice and empower them and connect them through this 3D visualization, but also use more creative techniques of these first-person narratives and a poetic journey through the old town to really evoke personal emotion within the communities and connect them to the developers. So the next project I'd like to talk about is Respite from Reality. So for us, this one is particularly poignant at this moment. We created this particular project to give access to hospice and disabled patients to experience environments and stories that they would not normally have access to, and this would be via VR. So we worked with a particular hospice, Loris, to develop the use of immersive VR, where early users demonstrated the therapeutic benefits for patients and give them an opportunity to escape for a short while and give them a respite from reality. So it's often accessed via a simple app, and it's a great way for healthcare professionals to engage with patients and families in a different way. What we were asked to do at the start of the lockdown and with COVID was to release this project to the public. So you have access to this particular project online. When we made this with rowers in Cambridge, local rowers. They're a mother and son, Joe and Alex, and their story is told in two ways. We have two films. One is The River and the other one is Waltzing. And through their journey down the river, we explore their relationship, the mother and son relationship. What we've done is attach two 360 video cameras to either side of the boats to capture a 720-degree view of the river as you travel down the River Cam. So these two stories can both be experienced. They can be downloaded onto your mobile phone via a Vimeo app and moved around in your space, or you can experience these stories on your computer and move the screen around. We worked with sound designer that we've worked with quite a lot, Rob Toulson, to create these two different stories. So The River, we have an interview with mother and son who describe their love of the river, the environment that they're in, and also discuss their relationship with each other. And that's embedded with the diegetic soundscape With waltzing, we've embedded a music driven score, and which is designed to be more emotionally connective to individuals, and give the audience space to actually experience the river itself, without having to dig down into the relationship with Joe and Alex. And so both films are they can, you can choose which one you want to film, which one you want to experience, and the emotions that you want to evoke from that respite. So the feedback that we've had from audiences so far is that connection during lockdown has been absolutely vital. It's taken them back to the river, it's reconnected them to a space that they can't get to, it's been calming, it's been evocative, and it has given them a respite from reality. And it's also emphasised that relationship with families. Again, in lockdown, many people have reconnected with their own families, and it's been a powerful message during this time. So this is one of those unexpected outcomes from the project. So the final project that I'll quickly discuss here is the one that we have live, which is called The Frontline. And again, in lockdown, we're aware that many people are being affected by COVID directly, and that there are a number of key workers online that are putting themselves on the line and experiencing not just physical, but psychological and mental challenges that they are trying to overcome. So with the Frontline project, we are trying to capture stories from these key workers and the frontline workers in different ways. And they can send them to us, and they have been sending them to us either as blogs or vlogs. We've had poetic pieces, we've had photographs. We're not just looking at the NHS, we're working with the forces, with the Veterans Forces Institute, and we're working with paramedics, pilots, in order just to understand and have an archive of these stories as they're happening. And we're also connecting on social media to capture some of the stories where communities are actually using technologies that are available to us now. The mobile phone has become very powerful, a powerful way of communicating directly with the public. And we feel that this is going to be an extremely important archive to develop and to use, not just to inform policyholders in the future or the public, but also empower these particular communities of key workers, whether they are the NHS, the health workers, the forces, and that empowerment, that ability to actually voice what they're feeling and have that logged and archived as part of I suppose a historical vessel of testimonials, we feel is very important. So I've zipped through, we have our website link to the Frontline project there, and we really would love to have your feedback on that and respite from reality. This is how you can connect with us. This is our website, storylabresearch.com, and our Twitter site as well. So thank you very much.